Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
So I keep saying we're going to make some announcements about the future of the show, everybody. I realize I keep teasing this. Well, here it is finally. The new format, everybody, is this. Every guest who comes on the DEX Show from henceforth must not only be a DEX expert, they must also be a fan of Arsenal Football Club. And as such, I'd like to welcome for the first time onto the show, Scott Pope, fellow Nexthinker and senior value advisory consultant. Is that your current title, Scott? Is that up to date?
No, you've actually got that wrong.
I didn't think so. Wrong. You know, I thought when I took it off the system, I thought, go on, update us, Scott. Do it live.
It's director of value advisory, actually. So yeah, I was recently moved.
Up, haven't you?
I have, yeah, a bit like Arsenal, actually, a bit like Arsenal.
Yes, we're going to have a 25-minute discussion now about Arsenal to tee up the DEX Show proper. Of course, we're not really listeners. We're not really. I wouldn't do that to any Tottenham supporters or indeed American listeners, of which I know we have a number. But one thing we're going to try and do, though, actually, is bring on onto the show on a kind of rotating basis a few of my friends from Nexthink to discuss areas of expertise we think will be of interest to the industry. And Scott, I think DEXOps kind of falls as your area of specific expertise somewhat. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work. So yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. It's finally
I'll get to it, Scott. Don't worry. Don't introduce yourself. It's okay.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, DEXOps, yes. We've been doing a lot of work in the DEXOps space, and I'm sure we'll cover that. But yeah, really resonating with our customers. Really resonating with our customers.
It is. It's a big preoccupation in the industry. We're going to get your thoughts in a minute. But okay, now, this is your first appearance on the DEX Show. So please, to anyone in the audience who doesn't know you already, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your remit here.
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me. Finally, after 3.5 years, I've been allowed to come onto the show. So it's a pleasure.
Tim was standing in the way, Scott. What can I say? Yeah. He was like, never, no, it can't happen. And now he's gone. We're free to get you on. I'm kidding, of course.
So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. As you said, I am Scott. Scott Pope, based in London, just down, not too far from you, Tom. So yeah, just down the road. And yeah, I've recently moved into a new role of director, Tom, just to get that right, of value advisory. So your listeners might be thinking, you know, what does that mean? So there's really two sides to the role, to keep it simple. One is the customer facing side. So I work with our customers, partners, in the sales cycle, and obviously in the post-sale phase as well, making sure that our customers see value and then get value, business value from our solution. Do some work with the marketing team as well. Always enjoy working with you guys, working at attending events and things like that, and looking at the agenda for those events and what we can position. And then there's the internal side. So making sure that we've got sort of repeatable processes, frameworks for our sales teams, our go-to-market functions, to be able to sell and position the value of DEX and Nexthink. And DEXOps plays a big part in that as well.
Fantastic. And I just say, I know you're new to podcasting, but that line, I am Scott, it's top drawer. First rate.
Just needed to make that clear. You
know? I'm glad you wrote this stuff down. It's really good. Tell us a bit about your background. What brought you to Nexthink? What was your and what does your tenure look like since you joined? How has it evolved beyond your very recent promotion, which you haven't updated yet on the system, FYI?
Yeah. So what brought me to Nexthink? I was actually a customer of Nexthink's in a previous role. So going back sort of quite a while, I started my career on the support desk. I moved into infrastructure, cloud, all those buzzwords, if you like, managing data centers, managing the digital workplace, service management roles. And then in the previous role I was in before
joined Nexthink, we were actually consumers of Nexthink, so we use Nexthink. And that's what made me join Nexthink. I saw the technology, and when I saw the technology, I thought, this is new. This is exciting. We're looking at technology through a different lens here. We're looking at it through the lens of the employee. And coming off of the back of some of the work that I'd done in previous roles around projects and data center transformations and things like that, I felt that this was the future of how enterprises would manage technology, looking at things through the lens of the employee. And back then, that was about, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago. So we weren't really talking about AI. It was more around cloud and SaaS. And we'd been through a big transformation of moving services into cloud and into SaaS. And for me, the main focus was now becoming the endpoint, or the end user's device.
And that's when I saw the Nexthink technology, and I thought, something clicked. And then luckily enough, Nexthink asked me to, after a while, they asked me to come and join them. So yeah, that's sort of the pre-Nexthink story for you.
No wonder Tim was so against having you on, Scott. You're like a young Tim Flower there. Listen to that. Younger Tim Flower. Tim,
Yeah.
actually, I should just be specific. Tim was like, you got to have Scott on. Come on, it's teenagers. Is a big supporter of you, Scott. But no, that's great. And so since you joined,
Yeah.
and since I joined even more so, there's obviously been a massive sea change in awareness around DEX and what it is. With that, how have the conversations you have in your kind of consultancy role effectively
Yeah.
evolved? And can you walk us through how that's happened and what those changes are?
Yeah. So before I do that, I think just one thing, you mentioned Tim. Tim actually hired me. So
There you go.
yeah.
There you
So
go.
he did. Hopefully, he made a good decision.
Hired you and then stops you coming on the pod. Unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
Mixed messages, Tim Flower.
Yeah.
Come on. Oh my goodness.
So I mean, yeah, I think sort of when I first started, that was it's about 3.5 years ago now.
I think the conversations were very different to what we're having now. I would say we were more evangelizing back then, making people aware of the concept of DEX and selling that, like this is what the technology is and this is what it can do for you. I think now the market's completely changed, right? We've got the analysts, you've got Gartner, you've got Forrester. All of these analysts are talking about the concept of DEX, right? Which helps, because that makes our jobs easier when we're having conversations. And I would say 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever that may be, we were more focused on sort of the technical buyer, right? So the day-to-day users or the technical teams, the head of or the leader of the workplace team, the leader of end user computing. Now, it's not saying now that we don't speak to those people, because we still do, but the conversation is now changing, and that people are now more focused, that the senior leaders are more focused on the concept of DEX. And I think that's through the work that we've done at Nexthink in terms of pushing the market forward and evangelizing in the market. And then obviously with the help of the analysts and the likes of Gartner and Forrester, who are pushing that forward. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to make the joke that we've gone from evangelists to having a pope. This is how these things evolve in time.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's think about how these changing conversations reflect that growing power and relevance of DEX, particularly in this relatively new year. So to set the scene, what do executive level technology priorities typically look like in the large organizations you're working with today?
Yeah, so I think productivity is one of the the key things that everybody's talking about. Three years ago, productivity was a very different conversation than it is now. And I think AI has really helped us there. The whole purpose of AI is to drive productivity for the employee. I can remember about 3 years ago, we were speaking with a VP of quite a large organization in the UK, speaking about productivity, and they said, yeah, we're not really bothered. We're not really bothered about
It's
that.
a funny one, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the funniest thing ever. Yeah.
We just want to take cost out.
If they're working too hard here.
Yeah, we're not really too bothered about productivity. But that has completely shifted, right, over the last 2 years, I would say. I was also in Japan as well last year, towards the end of last year, so November, meeting with customers and prospects out there, because we've obviously, hopefully the listeners know, we've just opened that market, and productivity was top of the agenda out there. Every single majority of companies that I was speaking with were focused on productivity. So I think that's no longer sort of a nice to have. It's something that every single customer prospect is speaking about. The other ones are obviously cost. I mean, everybody wants to be more cost efficient, right? I think even in our personal lives, we want to do everything more efficiently, especially around cost. So proving ROI, looking at how we can be more efficient with things like hardware, software, even AI tooling that's being bought and purchased. So that's really helped, accelerate that conversation there. So cost is key as well. The other thing I just wanted to call out there was automation, and AI, because I think automation and AI are critical. And when we think about efficiency, we think about productivity, the driver of all of that is automation. So everybody wants to automate more, and they want to leverage the value of AI.
Well, that probably tees us up very well for the next question, which is, how is DEX technology increasingly able to meet all of those needs, not just the automation piece, although that's certainly a relevant part of the picture?
Yeah. So when we think about the sort of the value proposition of DEX and Nexthink, I think it ticks all of those boxes, right? When we think about the primary core message that we hear Pedro talking about so many times on stage at our conferences, is that we enable people with technology, right? When you enable people with technology, that drives productivity. So that's our fundamentally our core message, and that's what we're there to do. And I think with the advancements in our technology and AI, things like AI Drive and Spark, we can do that even more, right? We're in the right place to be able to do that. When we think about costs and value, I think they're two separate things. If we focus on costs, I mean, we're seeing a lot of customers drive real hard cost out of the business with, incident reduction, ticket reduction, and then hardware and software as well. So we see customers really utilizing our software to really be more efficient in those areas where they're spending hard cash, if you like, or hard dollars or hard pounds or hard euros. So the other thing I wanted to bring in here was around cost and value. We've recently done a study, right, of some data from our customer base, and we're seeing that the average customer, from the anonymized data, we can see that the average customer is getting around $83 worth savings per endpoint per year. So I thought it was quite an interesting point to bring that into this conversation, because I thought that the listeners might be interested in that.
And I don't know thinking about what we're going to call these, I think recurring appearances from you, Scott, to talk about not just the technology, but the the cultural issues around technology, which we're generally calling DEXOps. We might call this DEXOps Corner, something like that. I'm not quite sure just yet, but let's have our first look at that element, or let's take that perspective for the first time together. Because when we think about those cultural factors around DEX, communication does feel like a central facet of it. And we're talking about the conversations you're having and how they're evolving and who you're talking to. What is the trick to translating these kind of topics or those kind of numbers that you just cited when you're addressing C-suite or senior technology leadership more broadly?
Yeah, so just on the point of DEXOps, I think this is really interesting, right? Because was on a we had a call yesterday with we're running something called leadership circles with our senior leaders in the DEX space. And we brought up some slides that showed different areas that we want to talk about to get an understanding of where the priorities were. Can you guess what one of the priorities was, Tom, based on the conversation we're having?
Efficiency.
No, DEXOps, right? Everybody,
oh.
they all want to talk. They all want to talk about DEXOps.
Do they? Oh, the leaders themselves all want
They all want to talk about DEXOps. They all want to talk about DEXOps, and they understand that selling the value story is critical, right?
Do you think that's obviously to some extent this is true, but to what extent is it true that this is because they're our customers and what they're leaders from our customer companies? And to what extent do you think it is a prevalent preoccupation, even if it's taking different forms? And if it is taking different forms, to come back to the question, how do you address them and speak in that language?
Yeah. So the reason I think it's becoming a priority is because they're seeing the expansion of DEX across the organization. And they're realizing now, and this has been one of the key things that I've always wanted to happen, was that DEX becomes sort of a foundational layer across the enterprise or the business, right? It's not just stuck in the area of the end user computing team, is that everybody, not just across IT, but other areas of the business are starting to use it. And that's why that concept of DEXOps and DEX operations becoming so critical. When we think about the value story, if we like, and the communication piece, another plug for DEXOps, communication is a key part of DEXOps. It's one of the 5 key pillars. But when we think about communication, I think we just have to think about communicating in a language that's relevant to the receiver of what we're selling, right? Or what we're positioning. So if we're going in at a technical level and we're talking about, I know, disk cleanups or application crashes, somebody in a senior leadership role is not really, that doesn't resonate with them, right? Because that's not of value to them. So you have to understand what is of value to the person that you're speaking to, and then talk in that language and show them how you're impacting things that they care about, basically, things that are of value to them.
Which is relevant, of course, to, EUC professionals more generally, right? It's not just about how do you as a consultant or whatever communicate to the C-suite. It's about how IT professionals have to learn to communicate upwards in general.
Yeah. And that's what DEXOps is, one of the fundamental areas of DEXOps, right? Is we want to enable our technical day-to-day users or day-to-day champions to be able to have those conversations and communicate the value of the work that they're doing, right? Because it's important for them and it's important for their careers. And it's important for us as well, right? So.
Absolutely. And just to get into something you've kind of teased a couple of times in the course of the conversation, which is the project you worked on last year. We made a fairly big deal about it on the show as well, which was the DEX Productivity Report. You're very involved in it. Talk to us about the history of that search for value. I guess you've already covered that somewhat, but why it's accelerating more quickly today in terms of actually being able to put numbers such as the ones you just cited on it, and about that product, that report more generally, I guess.
Yeah, it was a really interesting piece of work, and it sort of come about from speaking with customers around the DEX score as a whole. Some of the customers we spoke with, specifically one actually, were doing a lot of work in terms of targeting machines and devices with low DEX, right? Low DEX scores. But they couldn't quantify the impact that was having on the business, right? One of the company that we work with was BDO. They spoke at our conference about this. So if any of your listeners want to go, and maybe that's a link that we could put underneath the podcast.
Certainly can. Certainly can.
For that session experience. But they really struggled with quantifying the impact of, taking say just at a device layer, a DEX score from, 20 to 50 through proactive work and remediations. So what was the actual impact of that? So we bounced some ideas around with their champion, with the champion there, Sam. And they went away and we worked collaboratively, and they come up with a formula, right? A formula for that, so they could quantify that, the impact of that on productivity. So what was the time benefit for the employee of making those technical improvements? They could then take that to their business and say, by this, with the work that we're doing, we're now driving productivity across these devices or these employees by X. We're improving productivity by X. And that's where the idea come from, I think, for the productivity report. Then we went away and we done some studies across a large set of anonymized data. And that's where our metric came from of the time per DEX score move. I think it was 22 minutes per week for a 10-point
Feels accurate.
DEX score increase. So yeah, that was the first report. I think there will potentially be more to follow as well, I believe.
Should be. Yeah, it's cool. I didn't know it started with BDO. I was obviously at Experience last year.
Yeah, so
BDO's keynote. Definitely, as you say, recommend people go to it because it is fascinating. People are going to be perhaps a little instinctively cynical of, assertions from a vendor, but these start with the customer. The customers.
And I think the other point,
conservative calculation.
Yeah. And I think the purpose for us was, we want customers to go away and think about this. We don't expect them to use our formula. Right? They can if they want. It's there. But we are seeing other customers now look at this and say, oh, do you know what? We're going to do this, and we're going to take your formula and we're going to adjust it slightly for what's relevant to our business. So I think that was the purpose, and it's good to see that we're seeing that across the market. So yeah, it was exciting and good piece of work, and thank you to the BDO team if they're listening for their support on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great piece of work, and there will be links in the show notes to BDO's original keynote or their keynote plus the full report itself and previous episodes where we discussed that in a little bit more detail. Scott, let's end with a look to the future. Over the next couple of years, what are the business challenges you anticipate emerging whereby DEX technology will be crucial in helping organizations adapt and succeed when it comes to those specific incoming challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, AI obviously. I mean, we have to talk about that, right? How can we not?
True.
I think it's going to transform the workplace, especially when we think about DEX. I mean, hopefully you're like, when we think about the agentic side and we look at Spark and what Spark's going to be able to do. Well, I mean, I use it every day now, right? It's getting better and better. It's amazing. And I think we're getting to a point where every single employee is going to have their own agentic, support person that sits on their computer and fixes things for them and they can communicate with. So that for me is going to be a game changer, right? Not only for IT, but I think for employees in general, right? That completely changes things for the employee. And that for me is about going back to our core mission, driving productivity, right? We're seeing some great data around how Spark is already doing that. I think things like the term tickets as we know it
Mm-hmm.
may start to fade away. Right?
Rip it up, Scott. Rip off
Yeah, I mean,
tickets, as I.
like it. People don't raise tickets, right? We don't raise tickets anymore. So I think what we'll see is that we'll just have some form of system of record that logs and tracks what the agentic solution is doing. So we have a login mechanism for that. I'd like to think we can come up with a better term than tickets in the future. I think measuring productivity is critical for every company. You know, the days of just deploying new tech to the business and seeing what happens are over. You know, we can't do that anymore. We have to understand how that is impacting the employee's experience and how it's driving productivity. And then that probably comes back to the point around value, right? Value and ROI. You know, we have to be showing in IT now, we have to be showing the value that we're delivering for the business.
100%, 100%. Well, it was great to have you on for the first time, and as I say, expect this to be a recurring feature on the show every month or two. Have you back on to give us some updates in this particularly, as you say, pertinent area of DEX in 2026 and no doubt beyond. And by then, Scott, maybe our hearts as Arsenal fans will be broken. Maybe they'll be full. What would you anticipate if it's a where are you tending? Just a word on it before we close out. Where are you? Are you optimistic about?
I am very optimistic, but
Very optimistic.
I've been here before. I don't think the next few months are going to be particularly good for my health. But yeah, we'll see. I think we're in a good position, right? We're in a good. If I'd have said to you, Tom, at the start of the season, you'll be in mid-February and we're 3 points clear.
3 points behind at the time of writing. Hopefully, tomorrow morning, 6 points ahead again.
We'll be 6 points clear. But if I'd have said to you, we'll be 6 points clear, we'll be through.
Which we're not.
Top
Which we're not. But yes,
3 points clear, top of the Champions League group in the Carling Cup, the League Cup final, and in the next round of the FA Cup. I think you would have bit my hand off. So remain positive. It will hopefully happen.
I pretty much agree. I certainly remain positive. And that'll do on the Arsenal chat. I don't think that'll do. We will keep it to a minimum, everyone, when Scott does come back on. But if you don't like the team, then maybe you'll get some satisfaction out of it. Probably in a few weeks' time. But pleasure to have you on for the first time, not the last time, Scott. Lovely to talk.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you very soon, man.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how Nexthink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nexthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.